Hey, everyone. Dr. Kennard here with BigZebra.com. What's up, Big
Yeah,
Zebra?
what is up indeed? I'm amazed that it's just the two of us. It's normally like six of us.
Yeah, what I have discovered after doing this for a bit over a year is that people's schedules change and
Mm,
people sometimes come in, sometimes people come out. Like even my schedule, right, changes. So like I
yes.
wasn't able to do a show yesterday. I'm not going to be able to do a show tomorrow. Um, so yeah, I totally can see why there are sometimes just two of us. There are sometimes six of us. Sometimes there's might even be more than six.
Mm,
So
okay.
I can understand that.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I have something to share with the class, and I hope you like it. I may find how far my taste is either in line or out of alignment. I am a member of Quora,
Mhm.
and
Can you tell
Quora,
people what Quora is? Because people may
yes,
not know.
it's basically a question and answer site where you can write a question about whatever problem you're having or a question about history. And if you, for example, had a question about history, people who had answered questions before on historical topics would have your question forwarded to them and you would be able to answer. And in general, anyone can go to Quora and answer any question they want. And it sort of becomes sometimes an interesting conversation, except this time. As I mentioned, I have sleep disorders.
Hmm.
And sometimes the question doesn't make a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Can you answer Carlasia Brown's question? What does it mean to have sleep paralysis and see a figure of a girl with a bob cut and has a stick figure and googly eyes and smiling at me next to my bed with her head coming closer and closer to my face?
Well, that's what we talked about these weird sleep phenomena when you're waking up or when you're going. Oh, I just want to say hello to Jesse Bear first. Hello,
Hi,
Jesse Bear.
Jesse Bear. Oh,
Hello. I didn't want to interrupt your train of thought, Zebra.
oh no, no worries. I'll post the link to this question on Quora
Yeah,
in both private and public chat
sure, that's fine.
and see how it works. Maybe you can share the screen if your system allows you to do that.
I don't know about that.
Um,
Whenever I try to hit buttons, I don't know. What's up,
oh,
Tom?
okay. Let's not. Let's just let people
Yeah, if
go
you throw
to
it
it.
in the chat, brother, if you throw it in the public chat,
Yeah.
people will get to it. But I mean, I've woken up when I was having really bad sleep issues.
Hmm.
There was one time I woke up and I saw a shaman standing next to my bed, looking at me.
Wow.
The
Full
Q
line.
shaman?
What's that?
The Q shaman?
Not the Q shaman. No, no, no.
Oh,
It
that would
was
be a horrible nightmare.
this is
Oh,
about 20 years ago or so, and he had a headdress on, a lion's headdress on, and yeah. So sleep paralysis, and that's a thing. And once again, waking up and going to sleep, there can be auditory and visual hallucinations. Yeah, yeah.
I've never had sleep paralysis, but I've had the auditory stuff as you're falling asleep and you like hear a blood curdling scream.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've had that
I.
before.
That is terrifying. I was luckier. I think it's
Yeah,
sometimes
I
called
think we lost Big
hypnagogia.
Zebra. I don't know.
And
Might have
oh, I'm
lost.
sorry.
Well, while Big Zebra waits to come back to us, because I think his audio might be funky. D Parks, congratulations with your daughter getting into law school. Job well done.
Oh, that's great. Can you hear me now, there, Doctor Kennard?
I can hear you fine right now. Yeah, I think you blipped out on us
Oh,
for.
okay. Well, I'm back, baby, and my favorite line from Futurama, the robot Bender, is
Mhm.
amazing. I used to have this weird thing.
bite my
I think
shiny metal ass.
yes, it it's got hit. I had hypnagogia. I didn't know it at the time. Thought I was hallucinating. I guess I was. And instead of hearing a blood curdling scream, which is terrifying,
Yeah,
I would hear the sound of a really busy party
yeah.
with dozens of people all talking at once, and it would jolt me out of bed, and it would freak me out.
So yes, I could see how that would be disturbing. And that's the thing. A lot of religious experiences, well, are not psychiatric symptoms necessarily, but they are definitely events caused by your brain doing brain stuff that your mind doesn't understand. Because there's no owner's manual. No one gives you an owner's manual to your brain. And maybe that would be useful if someone gave us some tips when we were in elementary school or in middle school about this is the crazy stuff that your brain can do. Be careful.
It's powerful. It really is. It can do some trippy stuff. Whenever I play the acoustic drums, and I've been playing them for a while, I often hear either an old telephone ringing, like that old school bell ring, or I hear my name being called, and it'll make me stop at times. The brain is a trick.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, I guess this is kind of an announcement. I know I talked about the Tang Network, where Oz is and Jimmy Lou is. We're doing and I'm saying we because I'm going to be co-hosting their Christmas party on December 16th. Wow, that seems soon, right? December 16th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. We got names. There are people there. I'm not a big name person. I'm a Second Commandment kind of atheist, and I just do my thing. But there's going to be some named people at this event on the 16th. I think I don't know. Maybe I think Seth Andrews is going to be there, and maybe Aaron Ra. I don't know. It's going to be a bunch of people. Am I going to be sober? I have to say I have to be sober because otherwise I don't think they're going to be letting me co-host. May I have a drink in me? Maybe I will. I don't know. What's up, Kendra? What are you sharing with us?
I just watched Aaron Raw last night eat some really hot wings, but they weren't really hot to him. But I don't know why that tickles my fancy, but for some reason, watching him eat spicy food is a fascination with me.
So, riddle me this: was he answering questions while eating spicy food?
Yeah, I mean, this time he was, the spice was in that just right zone, so he was talkative very much. So, yeah.
Isn't there a great internet show called First We Feast that shows?
Yeah, they have hot ones.
Sorry,
Yes,
go ahead, Jesse.
Oh, I was saying, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, First We Feast, and then they have an off, like one of their shows is Hot Ones, where they like interview celebrities while they eat increasingly spicy wings.
Yes, I've always thought that was wonderful, but I overdosed on that show and then stopped watching it. It happens to me. I like a show a lot, and then I get so thoroughly used to it that I don't want to watch it anymore, even if it's a new episode.
Well, thank you for the warning, Big Zebra.
Yeah.
I promise not to be your favorite show. I promise to be no one's favorite show. That's
okay. Yeah, it just unaddictive. The show is unaddictive.
Unaddictive. That's right.
Oh, I tried sharing a screen with you, Dr. Kennard.
Yeah, what do we have?
It's the Quora thing I did.
Oh,
I
okay,
don't think there's any point to it, but there you go.
Yeah,
if you rotate it up a bit, you'll see the actual message.
Can
right?
I do that? I don't even.
Yeah. There is. Well, maybe. Maybe you can't.
Yeah, maybe you can.
Okay. Well, technical lesson learned. Anyway, people have the quote.
So, Jesse, how are you feeling these days? I know that you and your family have COVID. How's everything going?
Well, the kids are fine. My husband's fine. I still have lingering symptoms. I actually went to my primary care office yesterday, and COVID kind of turned out to be, on the flip side, a good thing for me because they just realized I have at least one autoimmune condition that nobody could figure out for the past 2 years, but because I was so sick, it flared up really bad, and they were able to diagnose it yesterday.
Can you tell us what autoimmune condition it is? I'm curious.
Psoriasis on my scalp, and I've been told for 2 years I have an allergic reaction to something.
Mm.
Like, they're like, oh, it's your hair color, it's lotion, it's shampoo, it's this, it's that, and I've been dealing with this incredibly painful rash on the back of my neck up in my scalp
Hmm.
for 2 years. But because I was so incredibly sick with COVID, my body stopped fighting the
Ooh.
psoriasis, and it ballooned the rash and got, I don't want to get like gross, but it got very bad, like as
Wow.
bad as psoriasis can get, like bleeding.
Yeah, I hear you.
Ouch.
I hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
So they finally figured out what that was, and then I've been dealing with vitamin deficiencies and unintended weight loss, and they're like, oh, we think you might have celiac disease.
Jesus.
So now I'm gonna go get tested for celiac. Celiac does run in my family,
Okay.
so I wouldn't be surprised if I had it, but 2 years of being told, and again, this is sexism in the medical community, like, oh, you're anxious, oh, you're just overthinking it, you're a hypochondriac, and it's like, I'm not making my vitamin levels go low.
Look at
Like, I
the
can't.
numbers. They're low.
Yeah, like there's data, like I'm taking prescription vitamin D and I'm still vitamin D deficient.
My girlfriend, and I hope she doesn't mind saying this, is that, she had an issue with vitamin D deficiency. And she's been able to get it back into the average range, into the normal range. But, it's work. It's work for her to do that.
Oh yeah,
It
but I'm kind of like, wow, now I finally have an answer.
well, having a mystery illness and not having an answer and then getting one is at least helpful, and maybe there's some hope down the line that it gets sorted out.
Yeah.
So Jesse, is if you do have celiac, when a person has celiac disease, do they go to does a gluten-free diet help?
That's pretty much the only thing you can do for it. I have family that has it as well, and if you don't go gluten-free, there's obviously, malnutrition can happen, and you're also
Yes.
putting yourself at risk for like intestinal cancers.
Yep.
Because the body attacks the I think they're called cilia in the intestine.
Yep.
And it can even cause joint damage from the malnutrition, and the only thing to do is to go gluten-free, which would suck because I love bread, but
I had a girlfriend who who decided to be gluten-free, and she had been gluten-free, and that resolved many of her health problems, to tell you the truth. Problems that you wouldn't even think that had anything to do with gluten, but it did clear up a lot of her issues. And for a while, I was gluten-y kind of free too. And it's worked, just like any kind of major behavior changes work. But, you do the things that you need to do, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a difference between people that just want to be gluten-free as a preference,
yes,
versus a medical need to do it. Like, to actually get diagnosed with celiac disease, you actually have to get they have to take a small biopsy of your intestine and look at it under a microscope to see that like your cilia are inflamed and having like an autoimmune reaction.
How do they get that?
They roto-rooter you.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you've ever gotten, or about colonoscopies. I imagine the process is somewhat, with
It's
colonoscopy.
pretty much the same thing from what my family member told me. It's the same prep, and then instead of just poking around and looking for polyps, they just go straight for the biopsy, so it's a quicker procedure.
Yeah.
There are autoimmune markers that they can possibly see in a blood panel, but that's not definitive as of now for a medical diagnosis. But so I'm not looking forward to possibly having it and possibly having to get the tests and stuff, but I felt like crap for 2 years, so I know that it could, so as simple as just not eating gluten, which is a pain in the ass as far as life, but to feel normal again would be great.
The positive, and I'm not I don't want to shove or rain down puppy dogs and rainbows when you're not feeling good, but you're relatively young. I mean, and most, speaking as an older, person, is that I know that I had medical issues I didn't resolve until later on. And, when you're able to resolve medical issues or manage them when you're younger, you can definitely prevent longer term damage, and get a handle on it. Yeah. But it's very, my thoughts are with you, Jesse, you and your family. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. The nice thing is that the steroids they're giving me to pick what's left of the COVID lingering symptoms is also going to, as I was told, clear up the psoriasis.
Good.
And should help with the other stuff I'm dealing with if I have celiac, just because I don't want to definitively say it when I don't have a diagnosis, but it should improve that as well a little bit. And she did suggest I attempt to go gluten-free and see if it helps, and if it does, then they'll schedule the testing, because they don't want to schedule the testing if it's not the thing, because it's semi-invasive and not fun. So they're like, test it, see if it works, and if it does, then we'll schedule you for the testing.
Keeping a food diary, I found useful when I was having migraines in my 30s, and I found that caffeine was a trigger for me. Drinking too much caffeine just made my brain too brainy, I guess.
I will get headaches if I do not drink coffee one day.
Oh, really?
If I skip coffee, I will get a freaking headache that is just unbearable.
Well, that's caffeine withdrawal.
Yeah.
And red wine, that's another one. Drink red wine and get a headache. A lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
There's an ingredient in red wine that does that. It starts with a T. I forget what it's called, though. Yeah, that'll give you a headache.
I win the contest.
Woo-hoo.
I know what tannic acid was.
You get a cookie, Zebra.
Thank you. Okay, that was...
But yeah, my COVID turned out to be helpful in a way, even though it sucked.
Yeah. Well, So good luck with the with managing that. And it's good that you got official diagnosis. And it just sucks. It just sucks that you weren't being taken seriously about the conditions that you did have before now.
Yeah, but unfortunately, from my personal experience and my experience with my family members that have other autoimmune conditions, it's, it took, and they're unfortunately all women, it took, the one person until she was in her mid-50s to get her diagnosis, and she had been suffering literally her entire life. And when you're celiac and you never know it, and you're trying to do all the things to be healthy, and it got to the point where they actually thought she had RA because her joints were so messed up from decades of malnutrition. And then when the RA medicine wasn't helping, somebody finally listened to her and they realized that was the problem.
Isn't lupus autoimmune too? And it attacks the joints, I think.
I believe it does.
Yes. It's a little bit different though, because I want to say lupus affects a lot more systems, because lupus can also attack your kidneys. Whereas celiac it's in the intestines, and then you get full body symptoms because of the lack of absorption of necessary nutrients.
Yeah.
From what I understand. I'm not a doctor though, so.
But you're on YouTube, so that means you can, say that.
Yeah, and I hear if you're a minister in some religion, you can make medical pronouncements all you want.
Well, I did just pay to be a bishop in the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, so I guess my word is gospel.
Your word is noodly God indeed. Well, we now have for the poll, it's 60% saying yes, that preachers should go to jail. they spread lies about COVID. So
There should be some consequences. I mean, you can't yell fire in a crowded space. If you're on the internet, on these social media platforms, spouting off shit that you don't really know about, yeah, you should suffer some consequences,
Yeah.
especially with the life-threatening or serious illness things. Like, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I mean, if not jailed, like seriously fined.
Sorry, Tobin, I
It's all
did
good.
it again. I was thinking of something sort of similar. A long time ago, Procter and Gamble had a picture of a moon with like 13 stars that were meant to be um, uh, for the 13 original American colonies, and they started saying that it was of the devil, and you could draw 666 from the stars, and that it must be a devilish organization. And all these preachers started talking about this, and Procter and Gamble shut it down by picking one of them and just suing the fuck out of him.
Oh wow!
And it occurred to me, what if, maybe you could sue these preachers? Like your dad died of COVID, and he listened to this idiot preacher, and sue him for dispensing dangerous misinformation that gets people killed.
Yeah, I think. Well, John Hudson points out that was the satanic panic crap that was going on. I remember that story too, about there's so many stars, and then
I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, it's basically the same kind of recycled hysteria that you see from this once again from the Salem witch trials to the satanic panic to QAnon today.
There's also that theory that some of these witch trials were prompted by mold on
ergot poisoning. Ergot.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, ergot is the fungus that LSD is made out of. And so there have been incidences that of ergot poisoning. Supposedly, I don't know how scientific they are. That is one theory, though. I think the more likely excuse, because when you think about the Salem witch trials, you had brown and black skinned people being targeted. You had angry white religious nuts walking around, and children. Think about the children. And so that alone would be enough of a mix for insanity to happen.
Well, you will win this trivia round for knowing ergot poisoning, if that's the right pronunciation.
We actually, Jack Paterko and I, we used to do this podcast, The Naked Diner, and we had a gentleman who's a member of the Satanic Temple up in Salem who does this satanic walking tours up in Salem, Massachusetts, and he came on and basically educated us about the witch trials. And being a native of Massachusetts too, I've been up to Salem quite a few times, and so I've done the walking tour. It's a great walking tour.
Oh, so it's a good place. It's not just a tourist trap.
Yeah, well, there's stuff up there to learn. You have the Satanic Temple headquarters are up there too. So you can go on the walking tour. Once again, very informative. And so there's a lot of tourist trap. But there's legitimate stuff.
Okay.
I've heard from friends there's a lot of woo-woo tourist traps too.
Oh, there's a lot of woo. It's a lot of woo tourist traps. Yeah. The good thing about the Satanic Temple is that they don't really peddle in. They do. It's all metaphor for them. So there's no thought that real magic exists, at least for that flavor of Satanism.
I think that's lost in translation to most people just hearing about it, and they're like, oh, well, they talk about magic, and people don't actually look past the name. And I think that's their one downfall as far as like getting their point across.
Well, it is interesting in terms of tactics and about what the goal of the temple is. So I don't know if we're all old enough here to remember when the American atheists were the ones to be feared by the religious right. I mean, if you're overstepping your boundaries in the church-state violation, they would send David Silverman over to give you a hard time. And now it's more like the temple does that role in terms of being the super bad guys in the movement. So bad that many atheists do not understand what the temple does.
There was a wonderful thing the Satanic Temple did when some idiots were sending Christian activity books to a public school.
Yeah.
And they were being distributed. So they forced the distribution of the Satanic Coloring Book and Satanic Click the Dots books.
Yeah.
And they look great. And you just say, okay, if you want to do this, we're going to do it too. And of course, they get all offended. But that's too bad.
Yeah. They were doing after school Satan, basically, because there were these
Yes.
Christian groups. And yeah, they do good work. They do good work.
Mm-hmm. Tobin, if I may ask, on to your right, on screen right, there's what looks like a table suspended in midair, and I'm wondering if it's satanic or.
It's where I keep my candles that burn blood. No, I don't know. Yeah, it's just a candle holder.
Oh, okay. It looks like a nightstand from here, and it sort of seemed to be an odd place to be near the ceiling.
Yeah, and sometimes, well, during the summertime, I keep a light up there, a little flashlight. So if I wake up at nighttime and I don't want to turn on all the lights and wake up Kendra, I'll just grab my little flashlight and go
Very
do
cool.
what I'm going to go do.
Mm.
Jesse, I'm just looking at your comment here. I'm still a bit underhealthy weight. One male MD told me to see my OBGYN because it must be a woman issue.
Yep. That was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay to suggest it as one of the things you should check, but to assume that your symptom must be some silly itty-bitty women's issue is just maddening. Just holy crap.
It happens all the time. One of my kids, I've mentioned in chat before, one of my kids has a very rare genetic difference. And I had a hunch that my kid had this condition. They're 10 now. I had a hunch that they had it since they were 4.
Wow.
And I, as a cis female, was told by multiple pediatricians that I Google too much. And my kid was denied the medical treatment that they need to have a long, healthy life for, 5 years, because after being told that so many times, and I'm only 32, so I'm, kind of a young parent with my oldest child, I, eventually get kind of beaten down. And then eventually somebody was like, oh, this, and this don't look right. And I was like, yes, I know they don't. Like, I've been saying this for years. And then, boom, diagnosis. And my kid finally gets what they need to be healthy.
Good.
And it sounds like my family's just filled with medical problems, but
well, I mean, when you look at, how many things we didn't know about, even just like maybe 40 years ago, to where we are now. I mean, so yes, more people are getting diagnosed with real conditions, because we just know more about these very rare events or very rare condition people can have.
It's sad, though. We really need to find a way to take the biasness out of the medical field, because what Jesse is talking about is, it's so prevalent. I've heard other stories from other people complaining about the same issue. It's like the doctors themselves, they have all the right tools, but the medical people don't have the correct skeptical tools, or they can put their own bias in things and misdiagnose and mistreat.
And it's
Well, and
so
the
easy.
crazy thing. Oops, sorry, Zebra.
Jesse. Sorry. You go,
No.
Jesse. It's your topic.
Oh, I was just going to say that the most infuriating thing, and like Crypta just said something in the chat, I think would be who of you, Andy, to highlight. Um, but like my kid's condition, like I get that doctors are taught, you hear hoofbeats, you think horses, not zebras. The problem is like zebras are a lot more common than people think because we have more technology to find them. Like my kid's diagnosis, it's a difference in their chromosome.
Yeah.
It is a blood test to do a DNA test to find this.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a traumatic test. It is a simple blood draw. But because they are so stuck on this horses, not zebras, they refuse to look past the obvious
Yeah.
and even attempt to look for the more rare or underdiagnosed things that can really mess with somebody's life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And looking at my kid and off the street, you wouldn't know that my kid has this rare chromosomal difference that affects a lot of the major systems in their body.
Mm-hmm.
But being their mother, like Crypta said, like, if it's your kid or yourself, you're treated like an idiot. Like, we don't know, like, who's around your kid more than the parent.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But we're treated like idiots. And I really feel like the medical community, needs to realize that cis females are not stupid.
Yeah.
There is less research done on cis female bodies. Therefore, it is harder at times to diagnose things because it can present differently. And then just get over this like high horse that I guess they have of like, well, I have to know. And if it's not something I know, then it can't be that. And I know so many women that have dealt with it.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, is there sort of a what is it called? Signal noise or signal loss?
You gotta, when you're dealing with data in general, right? I mean, this is for everyone, whether you're a doctor, a data scientist, or an everyday person, because there's so much information. It's always trying to find the signal through the noise, right? It's trying to find out what the truth is, the signal there that's in all this other data, and as skeptics and just as humanists, we should, aspire to do that as much as humanly possible.
I was thinking that what if doctors are screwing up because they get a fleet of hypochondriacs and people who are internet doctors coming in with crazy diagnoses, and so when someone reasonable comes along, they miss it.
Well, the thing is, and you raise, and also the scapegoat kind of, you're both kind of hovering around a central issue here about what kind of incentives does the system give for doctors. When you only see your doctor, even for a full-blown physical, for like 15 minutes, for 20 minutes, right? And they're trying to do the paperwork as they are talking to you, then how can they build up a relationship with you, even if it's your regular doctor, right? They don't have the ability to get the perspective to take a step back and to try to find that signal through the noise, because they only have such a small amount of time to work with you. The system does not help. Insurance companies do not help. And I was talking to my doctor years ago, and I asked him, straight out, it's like, do you think the system can actually be sustainable over the long term? And he said, no. He laughed, actually. He's like, no, this isn't possible. We can't keep doing this.
Telling y'all, we need a healthcare funhouse that you could just walk through and you go through all the different stages. They check you, get checked out all the way through.
Well, that's it, Jesse. Jesse was responding to Scapegoat as scary in the chat. So often my insurance didn't want to pay for the DNA test for my kid. Yeah. And they made you jump through hoops. Yeah. Yeah. I had, once again, the girlfriend who was actually my ex-girlfriend who was in health insurance too. She told me stories about the crazy chaos that happens, about how insurance companies structure how they pay hospitals, how they pay doctors, how they pay you. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend that was in health insurance, and she had to leave that field because she said it was soul crushing. Because she dealt with an imaging. She would dealt with the insurance at an imaging center, so like MRIs and CTs, and they had a lot of older people with cancer,
Oh yeah.
and she would have to, call these patients and be like, I'm sorry, your insurance won't pay for your CT that you need to know if your cancer's getting better. And she said it was just soul crushing, and she had to leave. She couldn't
Yeah.
tell these people like, oh, they're not paying for it. You owe us like 10 grand.
As
God.
And they're
as I'm looking at colleges for my kid, or as she is looking for colleges, she's 16. We're looking international, of course, Canada, Europe, Western Europe, and stuff, as well as some areas around here. But her mom asked her, and I don't want to smack talk my ex-wife, but I am. She's like, so why do you want to go, international for school, Al? And my kid's like, do you pay attention to the news?
Well, Canada gets a ton of kids applying because Canada is one of the few countries that will let you work in country while you are a student.
Yeah.
And it can help a lot. I don't know if our visa students, they have to pay a lot more than a Canadian student, of course. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how the costs work out. What subject is she interested in studying there, Dr. Kennard?
Art. She's an
Well,
artist.
Well, I can recommend McMaster University of Hamilton, but I don't
Yeah.
know if that would be near the border relatively.
Oh, that's good.
Um, they did have a fine arts program while I was there, but there was always some jackass around thinking that a university should just have a few art courses and not offer master's degrees.
Sure. We have a great public school here in Massachusetts. I think it's the only like a public funded by the state, partly funded by the state, Mass
Oh,
Art.
okay.
And I think it's the only one in this country. It would be great if I felt confident that the country wasn't just going to fall into fascism in like 3 years, 4 years, well, in 5 years or 6 years or 7 years. If my reasoning is if my kid gets into like a Canadian school now, it'd be easier for her to stay in Canada, right, and to find work in Canada afterwards.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
But if she goes to McMaster, consult me what area of the city to live in, because I had a funny story. I was calling on a customer who lived about 9 hours away from Hamilton and told me that her daughter wanted to study at McMaster, but didn't have a place to live yet. So I sent her, this was pre-internet, I sent her a map of Hamilton and the newspaper that showed all the listings for rentals.
No.
And I say, call me before you pick a place because I have information for you. Well, they found an apartment and they said, well, it's in the such and such building. And is security good there? Is it safe? And I said, well, I understand they recently upgraded their security, but I didn't tell them it was after a woman was decapitated in the parking lot.
Wow, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh.
And good on the cops, though, in Hamilton. They spent years figuring out what asshole did it. Ended up in a mental institution somewhere and tracked him down.
Yeah. Well, I've talked
That
about
is terrifying.
That is terrifying. That
I
is
didn't have the heart to tell them that someone got decapitated in the garage, but because they'd already moved in,
Yeah. Well,
there are crazy people everywhere. So
yeah.
When my kid went down to visit a relative down in Georgia, and they took a tour at one of the art schools in Savannah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, I mean, I'm sure it was a nice school, but it's fucking Georgia. I mean, it's yeah, it's not a blue state. They might be struggling to become a blue state, but that's not safe territory.
I feel so sorry for my American friends sometimes. You get weird stuff in the news that doesn't make any sense. And we have our own problems in Canada too. Not, we're not perfect by a long shot.
Yeah.
But somehow, parents give a psychologically disturbed son a gun, and then he shoots up the school in Michigan. And
Yeah.
And they'll probably say, "Well, we wanted to help teach him responsibility," And I think, well, maybe teach him responsibility and then get him a gun.
Yeah, that's.
Let's buy him a Corvette, put him in it before he goes, gets any driving training.
That's a good idea, Toby. I like that, especially if you could find out who's the gun nut and then make them drive without driving lessons. And if they die, we're better off.
Thank you, John Hudson, and people in the chat talking about Emily Carr. I actually Googled the name, and it's on a tab as well as McMaster University for me to take a look at. What's up, Cindy Plaza? Good to see you here. What's up, John? Tired, John?
By the way, if anyone, sorry, Doctor.
No,
if anyone is feeling interested, Emily Carr is a goddamn genius. She's passed away years ago, but God, her paintings are amazing. Just go look them up.
See, now I want to take a look at them, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. They're nothing dirty, though.
Well, believe it or not, I do like to look at art that isn't dirty. Big zebra. I don't know why that was directed towards me.
I was just being a jerk.
Chris Mario says the state scares me. I'll be honest about it. I worry more about the USA than the Russians. China, ISIS, and the Taliban combined. Man, that is so tough to start trying to decide about what to be. Well, because I'm here in the States, I think I'm more than likely to be a victim of the States than I am of the Taliban, to tell you the truth. So, yeah.
There is some good news, though. Apparently, under Joe Biden, the number of drone strikes and the number of civilian casualties has dropped. And instead of dozens of drone strikes, there have been 4 in X number of months. It's really interesting.
Biden is doing I'll say it. I know a lot of people don't like hearing it. Joe Biden is doing a good job. There, I said it. You can clip it out and just pillar me, stone me, throw rotten eggs. He is doing a reasonable job with the Russians. He's doing a reasonable job with the Chinese. He's even doing at least he is, I don't know if anyone has noticed, but he is in negotiations with the Iranians too. So there is he perfect? No. But is he doing a good job? I would say so overall. Yeah.
I think I would give his cabinet and his, all the people he picked more credit than him.
Sure.
Because I personally just think that, individuals, a president doesn't have all of the power. It's more about the people underneath them, from my perspective. And that was one of the giant issues with Trump, is he had so many idiots and yes men under him, whereas I feel like Joe's picks were people that would be like, yeah, no, I'm taking charge of this because you don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah.
More willing to oppose, and then he would be like, oh, okay. He's not one to
with the
fight.
team.
Yeah, he's not one to push back, whereas Trump's wet dream was to be a authoritative dictator. That's what he wanted to be. That's what his goal was.
Sure.
He didn't actually want to be part of a team. And I don't think Biden's the best person in the whole world. I have family that have personally had to deal with him. I have a family member that works security, and they were there when Obama was still in president, and he said Joe drove him friggin' nuts because he just kept wandering off like he was a civilian. There's you need to let us follow you, we're your security. He wasn't being mean about it. He just wasn't. He was I'm just a normal dude.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's a good person. I just think he's made better picks. I don't know him personally, so I can't speak to that. But I definitely think his picks are good.
If I was going to do a performance review of Joe Biden and of what he's been able to accomplish so far, especially considering it's a sliding scale, then I give him a good review. I guess that's what I'm saying. And with all those caveats too that you just mentioned, Jesse, there, I would still say good review. And the funny thing about Trump, and again, I'm going to go National Socialist here. I'm going to talk about Hitler for a second, because the way how Hitler dealt with his underlings when he was in power is very similar to how Trump dealt with his underlings too. He wanted to keep them in an adversarial relationship, and so that no one got too much, so they couldn't be this kind of cabal forming around him. The different power centers within his administration. Not an unheard of tactic about keeping your people separated and, if anything, fighting for your attention.
And I do feel like Joe gets a little bit more of a pass than previous presidents would have, because we're all like traumatized from Trump too. Like a potato would do a better job than Trump. So I think people sometimes, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I know some people are just like, oh, he's the best thing ever. I'm like, there's downsides. Like, we need to be fair. It's not perfect. But I think anybody on the left is so like, oh my God, I can finally stop watching the news for a day and know the world's not going to explode.
Yes, Cindy Plaza, I do believe Trump did that on purpose, keeping people divided within his administration. Because if you're paranoid about power, that was probably a conscious thought that he kept. I think he probably this is endemic of how he has probably treated his businesses too, keeping people separated, keeping people fighting amongst each other to get his attention. I think that was like Trump is he's not as stupid as many people make him out to be. And he has a playbook, and he just sticks to that playbook.
I've met people like that in real life that like pit other people against each other, and then they're like fighting, and then they're also trying to get the attention of like this particular person. I find it disturbing. I'm like, man, like, I wish I could have some one-on-one time with you and get you to stop doing that, because it's annoying.
I
don't feed into it.
Be good.
Yeah.
John Hudson says, I like having Jesse on the stream. Seems more better. I like the language there. I like the word choices.
Thanks, Todd.
There's a lot of good news in the today. There are now Switzerland has approved 3D printed suicide pod that can be activated just by blinking.
I saw that. I didn't get to look at the article, but I saw, and that's been floating around the news cycle. Because for those of you who don't know, Switzerland is actually one of the countries that people travel to for assisted suicide, and there is. You want to tell us more about that, Big Zebra?
I don't have anything. I can confirm that Switzerland and the Netherlands have assisted dying legislation, so you can't be prosecuted.
Yeah.
Why would you need a 3D printing machine for it?
That makes me think of the Futurama death booth.
I love that booth.
I'm very much pro right to die.
Mm-hmm.
I do agree that there should be some caveat and like regulation. Like, you don't want just like a teenager who's dealing with mental health, taking their life. But like I've mentioned my grandmother in chat multiple times. She's now 92. She has Parkinson's. She's got Parkinson's dementia. She very much so for the last 5 years wanted to die with dignity. And unfortunately, that's not an option in the state that we live. And, she's unfortunately otherwise physically healthy, but now she's losing who she is.
Yeah.
And, it's as hard as I'm sure it is on her, it's been torturous on us as her family to watch her slowly go from herself to knowing she's losing it.
Yeah.
And it's very, like, she was very angry for the past year because she was cognizant of the fact that she was in decline in her mental state. And it's heartbreaking to watch this once incredibly strong-willed, very independent person almost turn into like an infant. Like, she needs help doing daily tasks. And I would give anything to allow her to have dignity in her last moments. Because we had many conversations about it, her and I, just very blunt and to the point, because that's who she is. And she was like, I really just, I'm tired. I'm very old. I don't want to be this giant burden where I'm not actually a person anymore.
Right.
Yeah. And that's not an irrational statement. Those are not irrational statements.
No, and I totally get where she's coming from. I wouldn't want to live like that either. And it makes me sad that so many people are so obsessed with this, life, that they don't want to give people the choice in their own life when there is a logical reason to want to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Here. It's astonishing that someone who's paralyzed from the neck down and or has some sort of tragic condition, and maybe they have ALS, and it's just enough. I've had enough. I want to check out, and why not get the express checkout instead of the long, lingering,
painful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I put a quote into private chat there of a study I found, but it's behind a paywall. So.
Okay. I hate the paywalls because you got to pay.
Yeah, I know. They're funny about that, and it's for a really shitty Toronto paper too. It's
Student Dr. Ben was. I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead, man.
Go ahead.
Yeah, student Dr. Ben was just mentioning about that, like how there's a lot of information that is behind a paywall, and there's like a lot of us who get angry at some people because they're saying stuff that is, inaccurate, but yet to understand that information, it takes money to be able to get it. So, like, I don't know, there needs to be a way to where information can get, free flow. It should, just go.
Well,
just
I know
let people have it.
I know it's more difficult for me to make fun of Joe Rogan now that Joe Rogan's on Spotify and I don't get it for free. I'm not paying I'm not paying to join Spotify.
No.
To make fun of Joe Rogan, I'm not doing that.
Oh, and in other good news, HarperCollins will no longer publish Chris Cuomo's book.
Good.
They just said, we're not doing this. Publish it yourself, jackass.
Yeah.
Remember how much other bullshit do they still publish?
Yeah.
Well, it's HarperCollins, so it's a lot, but virtually everything in publishing is now owned by Random House, and Penguin is Random House, and Simon & Schuster is Random House now, and Simon & Schuster also owns Scribner, so it's fucking insane. A long time ago, Random House was 45% of trade publishing. By trade, I mean goes into the bookstores.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you know? I can't imagine what it is now, and I'd be scared to look it up.
Don't Simon and Schuster publish a lot of the like MLM gurus and the life gurus and the woo-woo gurus, if I'm remembering correctly?
Well, I can tell you that they're not against publishing woo. I was rather fond of their UFO books. I don't believe in UFOs, but I do approve of the books because I think they're fucking hilarious. But they will publish like oh, someone, Dr. Oz, if Dr. Oz had a book or something, well, of course he does have books. They wouldn't hesitate, but they would step away from complete scandal, um, and they do have some morals.
I think they published one of the Rachel Hollis books. She was like a female, be super positive, law of attraction kind of woo woo guru book.
Oh yeah, like
That
The
was
Secret. Yeah,
The
yeah.
law of attraction. Let me get my dream board
hate that
up,
stuff.
and I can like get my chakras ready to like manifest. That's the word, right? Manifest.
Yeah.
That shit causes so much mental illness. Like
Yes.
because again, I'm on the younger side. Like I have seen so many of my peers go into such depression because the idea of The Secret and the manifesting is that you bring good things to you, but you also bring bad things to you. So it's a lot of victim blaming. So like especially in college, like if something bad happened to somebody, and I'm
Yeah.
talking like something bad, like you got a bad grade on a test or like an assault, they would blame themselves for that because they're like, oh, I manifested that. That shit causes so many mental health problems.
That's
This is the thing.
hideous.
I fucking hate karma. I hate the concept of karma because it's just one version. It's just another version of blaming the victim. Oh, you did something bad in your past life. You did something in this life. So this is what you get for that. You deserve what you got. And it's like, that is horrible. That is a horrible burden.
It's a variation of the just world hypothesis, which you can look up on Wikipedia. And so, for example, if someone is covered in warts in medieval England, people think, well, they must deserve it because God's in charge, and He wouldn't let it happen unless, and it's just absurd. But we believe it even today.
Yeah, well, it's an instinctual thing, right? We all want to think that. No one wants to think. There's an instinctual pushback against seeing reality, right? Seeing how bad things can get, because as soon as we wrap our minds around, how bad things can get, um, there it creates a feeling of powerlessness, or it challenges us in ways that we don't like. Yeah, so we retreat into this fake world of things will work out for the best, or this is the best of all worlds.
Yeah, it kind of ends up in like a catch-22 because like I know my generation and down, you covered a while ago that there's less religiousness, but I've noticed in my peers that it's anecdotal, but the people that I know, they're not religious, but they get more into the woo universe,
Yes.
that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't know which one is more psychologically damaging because I feel like when my peers were religious, like in a very like I just go on Christmas to church kind of a thing, they had, I guess, a little bit more like, well, I guess everything will turn out good in the end. And now it's just like I'm causing all these bad things to happen to myself, and it's just like, no, they're both bad. Stop both.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shit just happens, and sometimes it sucks, and that's not anyone's fault except the person that did it.
Yeah. 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 Or that you're living in a system that incentivizes bad things to happen to everyday people. Right? It isn't the fact that you're manifesting this; it's the fact that you know, late stage capitalism is there to screw everyday people. Yeah. So
Yep.
I'm going to start closing down the show. We've been doing this for close to an hour. Last thoughts, anyone? Last thoughts?
No.
No.
Have a great day. Sorry I went on a tangent.
No. Well, this whole thing is a tangent. I don't think there's any through line here at all.
Thanks for hanging out with us, Jess.
Yes, thank you.
So,
it's been real. Thank you, Doctor.
No show tomorrow because there's work stuff in the real world I have to do, but there is show Friday. So take care, everyone. Hope the best.
Shamala
Hamala hamala.
And hitting the end broadcast button, and maybe it'll work. I mean, I don't know. I guess it is working. And no, it's not working. See, I'm just talking into the void right now.